A free speech group claims victory over Oxford College proposed free speech law, which will make English universities liable for breaches. This is so much good news.
Yeah.
Now, many years ago in the 90s, I used to quite regularly take part in debates at Oxford.
That's right.
I wouldn't be allowed to. Now, I would be non-platformed, I'm pretty sure. Oxford has backed down on a demand that all its students take unconscious bias training after a free speech campaign group intervened, because students do seem particularly left-wing and very strange at the moment.
Well, they always
Or
have.
is it me?
They always have been, but yeah, it's got worse,
Yeah, Somerville College had initially given students until Friday to complete the exercise. I wonder what the exercise is. These exercises are just damned flipping stupid.
Yeah.
You just don't non-platform somebody. If you don't agree with them, you let them come and debate it. That's what you're supposed to do, you bozos.
Yeah.
God, there are a lot of
Unless
stupid
they're
people coming out of university now, aren't there? Which leads me to believe, why don't you and I think of a sort of part-time job of becoming university lecturers? I hear it's really well paid.
It is, man. That's not a bad idea. What, in media studies, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, media apparently the thickest people go to do media studies, which I find insulting.
Well, no, it's true, yeah. That's what you do.
Yeah, so why don't we offer ourselves up as that? Any universities interested, me and Ash?
Yeah, definitely.
We can,
Reasonable rates.
Reasonable rates,
A lot of years in the business.
Yeah. Let's talk to Emma Webb, Deputy Research Director at the Free Speech Union. Every time I talk to you, Miss Emma Webb, you have a different title. I mean, how many titles have you got?
She gets promoted. Right?
I do lots of different things. So I think the last time we spoke, we were talking about statues. So that was in my capacity as a co-founder of Save Our Statues. But my main job is for the Free Speech Union.
Voices are very strange, aren't they? Because I just assume, now I can see you, I just assumed you were a lot older than you obviously are. Unless your makeup is better than mine. I'm not sure.
I'm very flattered.
Because he has good makeup.
I do have good makeup. Yeah.
I haven't got quite as good a shirt though as James has tonight.
Do you like my shirt? It's almost worth tuning in to see my shirt, isn't it? Really.
Oh,
Daisy, shush.
Set the dogs.
Sorry,
off.
it's Daisy. What's wrong with my shirt?
What's right with it?
Dear, oh dear. I was very worried. This has got nothing to do with what we're talking about. I was very worried. I found it difficult to get out and get fresh bread at the moment, because you can't, can you? Really?
Well, you can.
So I ordered.
If you live in civilization, you can get fresh bread.
I don't live in civilization.
I know,
I don't know what's going on outside, but something
sounds like American Werewolf in London, doesn't it?
Yeah, you wouldn't think for a dog that size she could make that much noise, wouldn't
Terrifying, man.
you? Yeah. So anyway, got a bread making machine. I just
have you?
Brought this into the conversation because I have no idea how to use it.
Well, the dog's expressing his freedom of speech.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Deputy Research Director at the Free Speech Union, how serious a problem has this non-platforming of people been?
It's very serious. So in response to the government's announcements, a few people related to the National Union of Students, for example, have come out saying that the government's responding to an imaginary problem and that this is part of their false attempt to fight a culture wars of their own creating. But the reality is that the threat to academic freedom in this country is very serious. A policy exchange report from August last year by Eric Kaufman found serious problems even with discrimination in the promotion and the granting of grants to academics on the basis of political discrimination. There were some really shocking statistics actually that in that report that I think it was 57% I think it was of academics wouldn't want to be seen sitting next to someone who was known to be a Leave voter. 30-odd% they said they wouldn't want to be seen having lunch next to someone who expressed gender critical views on trans rights. So the threat to free speech is serious. The Free Speech Union deals with a lot of problems of academics who have been no platformed and cancelled because of their views on various subjects.
But it's
so isn't it? Ash, hang on just a minute. So as a Brexiteer, Ash and me would not
you're
be
a Remainer.
No, I'm not. I was a Remainer,
You
but I
voted
changed
Remain.
my mind.
They'd welcome you with open arms.
Don't start an argument while Emma's on.
You would be
Right, I'm
eating
sorry.
your lunch alone at most universities in this country, I think.
That's the trouble. They're not
How
neutral with their freedom.
ridiculous.
They're not neutral with their freedom of speech.
But this must be down to the lecturers at university spreading this ridiculous left-wing rubbish around.
I think it's something partly to do with the fact that left-wing views are more represented proportionately
When you're young.
in higher education. Well, in higher education, not just amongst students, but also amongst the lecturers. And so there is a bias there that this policy exchange report found.
But how have they?
Even
Sorry.
the Reclaim voting, the Reclaim Party did some polling earlier. It was released earlier this week that found that more than half of the people in this country felt that they weren't able to freely express their views. And so the government's taking this very seriously and taking action, I think, is very welcome, because it is a serious problem and it isn't just some made up fantasy that opponents are saying.
But how have
Well,
they been enabled?
I'm going to be interested because I'm writing a piece for my column in the Express next Monday, which I don't want it to be. I'm not racist in any way, shape, or form, but I want to make a comment about something, and some people may consider it to be racist because I've actually deemed to say something along the lines: if you want to live in another country, then jolly well learn to speak the language. Otherwise, don't expect the country to fall over themselves to put stuff in your native tongue. Something along those lines, anyway.
I think you might struggle to find a speaking engagement at most universities with those opinions.
But you know,
there, Jay.
isn't that a point? People, and when I used to live in France a bit, they don't bend over backwards in their health service or their public services to put every document in every language under the sun. Mind you, the only language they didn't have this particular thing in, as far as I could see, was French and Italian, which I thought was a bit of a shame, but there we are.
Interestingly, actually, the Reclaim polling also found that 43% of people felt that they weren't comfortable expressing their views on immigration. So, unsurprisingly, that's something that has become very taboo over the last 5 years.
Well, I have no problem with immigration as long as people who want to move to another country are going there to improve themselves and improve the country. Not just because they'll think they'll get handouts that they couldn't get in their own country. Now, is that racist? I don't think it is.
No, it's not racist.
I think we should be able to discuss these problems, and that's really the point, isn't it? That within universities, especially, we need to have freedom of speech and academic freedom, because otherwise that would stifle the free inquiry that makes academia even a worthwhile endeavour. And the government actually, amazingly, Gavin Williamson actually said in the preface to this report announcing the government's decision to make these legislative changes, he said that he recognises that this is something, free speech and academic freedom is foundational in a democracy. And that is a very, very welcome thing for someone in the government to say, because as you know very well, that's being eroded, not just within the universities, but across the country at large. And
I can't tell you what I shouldn't. Yeah, I can't tell you what I should and shouldn't say on the air.
Yeah,
I don't stick to them, but I'm not sticking to them if I reckon it's an intrusion of the freedom of speech in this country, and that they are being. There aren't too many at the moment, and some of the ones that were imposed are being removed. But the media was in danger of being tied up in knots by political correctness of people who thought for some strange reason they were making it safe for everybody who lived in the country.
Yeah,
and that doesn't work.
There's a problem, and actually there was a letter in the Times this week that was organised by the academic Matthew Goodwin, highlighting the issue of putting people's emotional safety, as they put it euphemistically, above their right to freedom of speech. And the right to freedom of speech, as Gavin Williamson pointed out, is a fundamental right. You cannot have the other rights without having freedom of speech.
Well,
first.
they need to include it on the social media.
Exactly.
They need to include it, bring YouTube into the law, bring Twitter into the law, Facebook. They all need to be brought to account for stopping free speech.
Well, they
I
don't
think
stop
that's
it, do with proper they stop some people doing some things, and then other people get away with blatant racism, and they don't get stopped. So I don't know.
There needs to
which
be
of the
laws
young
for that.
spotty hang on, which of the young spotty kids sitting on a beach in California is making these ridiculous decisions?
Was the boss of it.
a perfect example of the two-tiered approach, I guess you would say, is at the University of Cambridge. So everyone will remember that David Starkey and Jordan Peterson,
Yeah.
two people who were, let's say, punished in different ways for the views they hold or have expressed, and David Starkey for what most people would say were racist remarks. But at exactly the same time that whole situation was playing itself out, a lecturer, now promoted to professor at the University of Cambridge, tweeted some pretty awful things about white people, and liked some pretty awful tweets that were, I think any sensible person would recognize those things as racist. Now, that's not to say that she shouldn't be able to tweet them or to say those things, and that we shouldn't be able to discuss those sorts of ideas. But the fact that the treatment of academics is so wildly different, and the fact that one professor could be promoted and another no platformed,
Well, this is let's actually talk about this for a moment, Emma, because this is really serious, and we've run out of time, but I'm going to ignore that. The problem that I foresee, listen, whatever you've heard, I'm a white, middle-aged, middle-class, bald bloke. Now, I can't change that.
Is that what you've heard about him, Emma? Or did you hear something else about him?
But it's perfectly acceptable for people of any skin tone to be quite rude about me. I don't care, because it would be you can't offend me.
We both got called gammon yesterday. It was very hurtful.
I've been called a gammon, so
have you?
It's not just white men.
Oh.
No. But, if I was to say something reasonably detrimental in a humorous or not so humorous way about somebody's skin colour, that was and I spend a lot of time in the summer trying to change my skin colour, I would be accused of being racist. But somebody doing it against me isn't. That's very unfair. Okay, I'm sorry. Not middle-aged, elderly. I know what you were going to say. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I think the situation with free speech is related to, but not entirely distinct from, the issues to do with the permeation of critical theory, let's say, throughout society, and that's basically where that comes from. And there is a certain hypocrisy in what certain people are allowed to say and other people are not. But I don't think that is the only reason why free speech is threatened in this country. But it does tend to be. There was one example of somebody who just simply expressed some views that were sort of right of centre political philosophy, and that was enough to get him in trouble with his university. So the disparity there between how different political ideologies are treated, never mind different groups of people, I think is quite stark.
Yeah, and people can say whatever they like about me, but I kind of get on with everybody. But if somebody wants to have a go, I'll have a go back, and probably twice as badly. I don't know, but it's And then when somebody suddenly, you can't say that.
Yeah, well, these people were always around in the 70s and 80s. They used to give out that newspaper, didn't they, at universities and stuff. Yeah. But they weren't in power of all these institutions. How have they got in power of all these, institutions, from the BBC to universities to the... How's all this happened? They were always there,
One theory that often gets referred to... Well, it often gets referred to as... coming from Antonio Gramsci, who was an Italian philosopher from the Frankfurt School, who advocated the long march through the institutions as a way of spreading particular ideological views, again based on critical theory throughout institutions in the West. So that's well, theory of where that comes from.
Sinked in, haven't they? But under the radar, they've soaked into the.
Ash, we're going to have to go now because you're just waffling on.
No, it's true, haven't they? Without us noticing, they've soaked into all these institutions.
Which university did you go to, Emma?
Cambridge.
She's
the great offender.
She knows answers to. Well, yeah, I went to take part in a debate at Cambridge a long time ago. Jim Bowen and I, if you remember Jim, and we were going to stay in one of the rooms in the halls of residence. And Jim and I went in. Jim said, "Well, we're not staying in here."
Super smashing great.
Yeah, we're not staying.
What was the debate about with you and Jim Bowen? I mean, it must have been a very high flying.
I think it was about comedy or something, or offending people. I'm not sure what it was, but it was. They got what they deserved anyway.
Good.
It was quite fun. Right, Emma, thank you very much indeed. Next time we talk, you will probably be something else.
Yeah,
amazing. She's got so many jobs. How many jobs have you got?
Different hats.
Yeah.
I'm a millennial. You've got to hustle.
Yeah, you've got to hustle these
Really?
days. They
You're
lose their
doing-
job
you're
every
doing
couple of
well.
days, don't they? And they get another
Is that
one.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
God. Well, she must be on a fortune. She's got about 6 high-paid jobs.
Oh, yeah.